Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Today's webinar is going to be on migrating to Teams Phone, some best practices, analytics, and drive-in results. This is a very personal favorite topic of mine. I love working on Teams Phone projects, moving clients from various different technologies into a Microsoft stack, going through all the use cases, integrations. So I am super excited to talk about this webinar today. And then with that, let's get into it. This is the agenda for today's webinar. We'll do a quick intro, then we're going to talk about the problem. What are we trying to solve with the Teams Phone migration? And then we're going to look into why going to Teams Phone. And then some of the hidden complexities when it comes to rolling out Teams Phone, things to be aware of, mindful of, be in front of before making a Teams Phone as your corporate phone system. Then we've got a couple of real world scenarios to go over. These are the projects that we have worked on, lesson learned, how did we solve, so really good stuff coming up. And then we're gonna leave with some takeaways and how we can help. So who am I? My name is Satyendra Sharma. I am one of the field CTOs here at Netrix, and my focus is digital workplace, which includes all of the voice, video, meeting spaces, the whole digital workplace and collaboration stack. That is the practice I work in here at Netrix. I've been with the company for over 8 years. I am based out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I live with my wife and two beautiful daughters and one dog that is okay for the most part. So that's a little bit about me. There's my LinkedIn link and the QR code, so feel free to connect with me because I do share some updates on LinkedIn every once in a while. All right, so the problem. What is the big problem that everybody is trying to solve when they talk about doing their phone system upgrades, right? So the big thing, or very common thing, I should say, that we hear from clients is end of life systems. There is a lot of systems that are they're working for 20, 30, 15 years. They're coming up to end of their life. The vendor support contracts are expiring. The hardware refresh is a big cost item, right? Because a lot of these older systems are deployed on premises. Some of the manufacturers no longer even make those hardware anymore, replacement parts. I have literally talked to clients who have purchased replacement equipment on eBay just so they can keep it in stock because the manufacturer doesn't even make it anymore. I mean, that's a big risk. Like I said, spare parts are increasingly scarce for some of these older systems. So overall, just a big risk with these systems that are going end of life. And then we have feature stagnation. So there is a feature limitation, right? Like now in this today's day and age, we've got AI, we've got automation, we've got personalized experiences. Even when it comes to like voice-based interaction, these older systems aren't keeping up with it, right? There's no possibility for it to even do it. The lack of integrations, right? So there is a lot of companies working in certain productivity tools. A voice element makes more sense when it's like tightly integrated, so users are not constantly switching tools to do their jobs. So a lack of integration. And then users are just juggling, right? They got too many tools to work through. Hey, I need to use this to chat. I need to use this to join meeting. Oh, and I need to use that to make a phone call. And then here's my all email, Word docs, and things like that. So it's very, very fragmented area, and then it's not really helping the user productivity. And the other things we also see is the rising maintenance cost. So these older systems are only getting expensive, even if you are not doing the upgrade, just to maintain, just to keep it up and running. On an average, we see the annual maintenance cost is going up by 20 to 30% compared to the original system cost. I mean, that's huge. right? That's a lot of money that we are putting to just keep the lights on a system that is not even scalable. It's not adding more capabilities, which is exactly my next bullet point. The capabilities are very, very static, and still yet we have to spend a lot of money to keep it up and running. And then not to forget the operational burden. We need the skill sets. We need, people who can manage those systems, who can work on them. You can patch them, upgrade them, because we don't want to have vulnerability by keeping it behind, too far behind. Onboarding, offboarding, all these things, new site addition, these are all operational costs that you need a skilled resource to be able to do, which is another operational burden. And at the end of the day, these systems are complex and they are not scaling, right? So that's a big problem as well. Now, what do we do? When clients I talk to, they're like, we have all this complex system. Um, what if we don't do anything? What if we stay where we are at right now? Well, you could, but like I said earlier, the operational maintenance cost is going to increase year by year. There is, 20 to 30 to 40% cost increase. Um, there is a gap in innovation. As we all know, the technology is changing so fast right now, and staying on this older system is only going to push you further back, right? Like whether you have other businesses that's our competition, those are going to have edge with the newer systems and using the new innovations and technologies. 72% of IT leaders also say siloed communication is a hindrance to productivity, right? So this is again what we talked about, different tools to do different things. That's a siloed conversation, and again, it has a direct impact on the user productivity. So, and lastly, a lot of these systems are going to be discontinued by the manufacturer at some point. Year 2025, 2026 is no different. There is multiple major vendors. They are going to be ending mainstream support on a bunch of the products that are already out there in use by clients. So what is your plan for that, right? So these are all the big risks that you put yourselves into if you stand still, right? What is the alternative to it? So if you shouldn't stand still, and then we have other options. We need to look at other alternatives. You need to look at your entire productivity stack on what do you use, what makes sense. If you are an M365 shop and all your users are using OneDrive, Teams for collaboration, things like that, Teams phone becomes a natural fit, right? Um, and then lastly, please be sure to check the end of support with your vendors, no matter what vendor you use. This is one of the things that oftentimes gets overlooked, and you are hit by a surprise when you get a notice from the client, from the vendor that, hey, this is your last year, and then all of a sudden we have to scramble. On that same note, here is a quick little screenshot. By no means this is a complete list. I just wanted to give some information in this webinar. So if you are on CUCM version 12, version 14, there are some dates coming up to be aware of. I mean, version 12.5 is already gone. So hopefully people are off those systems. If not, you need to take an action right now. There is a couple of versions of Avaya that is going end of support, or one of them, 10.1, is already gone end of support. Some might have some NEC equipments that are going end of support. So if you are on any of these systems, hopefully you have planned for a switch or an upgrade, migration path, what have you. There are other systems as well, right? So these are not the only manufacturers who make the phone platform. There are other systems, so please be sure to go check some end of support dates for them. So now let's switch gear and talk about why Microsoft Teams is becoming a popular choice to be the phone system for the enterprise. And to start with, the adoption, right? Teams phone adoption is growing year by year. Currently, it's over 26 million users using Teams as their phone system. If you go look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant report, Microsoft Teams is on one of the top leaders leading the UCaaS market. And then with the capabilities of generative AI and Copilot that we will talk about in the future slides, the tool is only becoming stronger and is getting adopted by more and more organizations as we speak. And the other reason why is because it's simple to use, right? If you are an organization who's already using Microsoft Stack, using Teams for internal chat, internal calling, maybe Teams meeting, webinars, stuff like that, it's very simple. It's just a natural progression of the tool. It's smart with the transcription, the AI capability that will show some use cases here. It is increasing productive. It's making user more productive, right? No longer you have to go sniff through your notes, take manual notes, write meeting summaries, or even for phone call, when you have a peer-to-peer call, you can transcribe it. You have an intelligent recap after that. If you are a boss admin type situation, you can do a transfer with the recap, so it has a context to it when you do those transfers. And then lastly, it is secure. It is running on the same Microsoft Foundation security for the entire Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So you can be rest assured the underlying components, the platform itself is following the high security standards that Microsoft has set for all their tools in the ecosystem. So we touched a little bit about intelligence in these tools. So what do we really mean by that? As we know, Copilot is the Microsoft's AI digital assistant for M365 Stack. And it is also plugged into your Microsoft Teams phone, driving intelligence in those types of conversations. So whether you are doing one-to-one call, whether it's being a Teams to Teams call or Teams to PSTN, inbound or outbound calls, you are presented with intelligent recaps. It adds a little more context to it. You don't have to go back and remember what the discussion was all about, especially when it's like a delegation scenario. It is a game changer. And then it ties into rest of your productivity tooling as well, right? So Outlook, you can, there is a Copilot plugin inside of your Microsoft Teams client that works, is paired with Microsoft Graph, so it can access all of your other productivity applications and give you a connected result from all things, right? So it's not a fragmented into like, okay, this is just going to give you a response from team side of it. It can look at your calendar, it can look at your email, OneDrive, SharePoint, what have you, to give you that robust information. Again, making users much, much more efficient and productive. So, Microsoft Stack, obviously there is licensing involved when we have to use Teams as a phone system. So this is no different. But I just wanted to take a minute and talk about, what this licensing looks like. So there is a Teams phone, so part of your base license, if you have one of those base licenses that includes Microsoft Teams, you do get access to the core tool itself. Now, when you have to do the telephony portion on top of it, there is a Teams Phone standard add-on license for E3s. If you are on E5, it is already part of it, or E7 now. Similarly, for frontline workers, there is a frontline license. If you want to add phone calling into it, there is a phone system add-on. There is also a bundled licensing available. So if you are in one of those situations where you do have to get that phone system add-on license, now you can buy a bundle that comes with calling plan, which is the Microsoft provided calling minutes and the phone system add-on itself. Or you can go and buy calling plan If you are an E5 shop, for example, you just need the calling minutes. You just go by the calling plan. Microsoft provided calling minutes. There are other methods to also deliver telephony into Microsoft Teams phone. So we will talk about that in the coming slide, but this is more based on if you are on the Microsoft ecosystem and using the Microsoft calling plan, right? So like I said, the last column here shows E5. So if you have E5, you do get the Teams core capability that includes the VoIP calling, which is Teams to Teams calling. And it also has this phone standard add-on component, which is necessary to activate the telephony. And then on top of that, you pair that with a calling plan or one of these other methods that we will be talking about here shortly. So since we talk about it, the other methods, so the top here is the core call control. So when you get that phone standard add-on, you get the top portion, which is the call control. Then we have the connectivity option. So the first one here is the native Microsoft offered, which is the calling plan. And then we have third-party calling options that ranges from Operator Connect, direct routing, and Teams Phone Mobile. And we're going to talk a little bit more about these three options in the next slide. Lastly, the top portion, you have the licensing, you have the minutes covered, but you also want to make sure you look at your devices, right? Like what are the user devices, the room devices, the desk phone, the conference rooms. Make sure they're using an optimized device for the best experience. So to break those options down a little more in terms of telephony option, the first one is the first party option offered by Microsoft. You can get a calling plan, assign it to users, and they have call service. Simple as that. There is some configurations we have to do to make sure they are set up for 911, they are set up with the appropriate phone numbers, things like that. But largely, it is all in Microsoft Teams provider solution. The one other thing is with calling plan is you have to get a calling plan for every telephony enabled users, right? So if you have 100 users, everybody's going to need that calling plan license. And then we can, the minutes, these comes with, there's a pay as you go plan, and there's some plan that comes with a fixed minutes monthly in that plan. Those minutes are pooled at the tenant level, so everybody uses the same pool of minutes, and that pool of minutes gets cycled every month. The second option is Operator Connect. So these are Operator Connect providers that have gone through a onboarding process with Microsoft. Now they are listed inside of your Teams tenant as Operator Connect, and they provide PSTN connectivity. Microsoft provides a platform and the client itself, and then Operator Connect service provides a dial tone, phone numbers, things like that. The Operator Connect has a little more reach than calling plan. There's plenty of options. Some of the carriers that you may be currently working on may have an Operator Connect service, so that may become an easier transition. There is also, similarly per user type Operator Connect service, depending on how many users are voice enabled. So those things are licensed accordingly. Teams Phone Mobile is an interesting one. So it's been out for a while. Teams Phone Mobile is essentially taking your phone number from your Teams client, your business phone number, and that number also is going to be your native phone number on your mobile device. So think of it like a Verizon provided number for your mobile is also your Teams business voice number. And the experience is very seamless, right? So if you have, the use case would be like you have a corporate issued device that you just use for work, the native phone number on the device is the same number as your business. The call history, everything is shared. And you can even transfer between the two. So if you receive the call on the native plan on the phone, and then you want to go and flip it to your Teams app on your desktop or things like that, you can seamlessly transition. So really making that unified connection between the mobile phone, and your Teams business. This is currently offered by operator, the Teams Phone mobile operator, who have this cellular networks, right? So there's few vendors out there already on the Operator Connect list, so go check it out. The last option is direct routing. This is the option that is highly customizable. So there is definitely certain use cases where this option is the right fit, whether it's integrations, there is customization, there is locations where either Operator Connect or Calling Plan, neither of the services are available. Um, and then it also, for large enterprises, that direct routing option is in most cases a right fit because of all the things listed below, right? There's integrations is the big one, local PSTN connectivity, or if you have an existing provider that you need to work on, so you can bring your own carrier type integration that we will talk about a little bit more. We here at Netrix Global, we offer a hosted direct routing option for our clients, which allows us to be very flexible to meet client wherever they are in their telephony journey. So we have done deployments where if a client is currently on Cisco, for example, but their carrier is going away, maybe they're retiring the T1 circuits, or a carrier cost is just too high, we can take over the phone numbers and deliver through a SIP trunk into the current Cisco environment while we plan the move to Teams phone, right? And then that way, we are already providing connectivity into your Cisco through SIP trunking. And then as client moves to Teams, for us, it's really a trunk to trunk migration, very easy. And then we can do that migration very easily and seamlessly for the clients and get them out of that PSTN situation, right? So really flexible for us. So once you have the licensing components in place, once you have the minutes, vehicle in place from any of the supported channels, what does this really look like? So if you are somebody who is not using Teams or have not seen Teams as phone, the big change is going to happen inside of that call tabs here on the left rail. This is where now you'll have a dial pad, you'll have your phone number, you'll have all your voicemails over here. So really, this is where you would come and dial the phone number. You would either by clicking the pad, or you can type it on the top here. It will do a directory search to find if it's in your directory. If not, it'll kind of kick the call out to PSTN, and then ring that far end using the channel that we used. So big changes happen over here. The device setting is at the bottom here, where you see the call forwarding is off. That is also where you would see your emergency calling address there, and we will talk a little bit more about it. So with the platforms like Microsoft Teams, where users can access Teams from anywhere, there is a dynamic 911 service that we need to account for to be able to follow the users, essentially, right? So they can connect from anywhere. We want to make sure there is a dispatchable location that gets pulled into the Teams and used with that 911 call, so that the emergency responders go to the right location where the user is, and not to their home office or headquarters, which is not going to be accurate, right? So this is kind of where you see big changes once those things are. And this is accessible through multiple endpoints. So as you know, Teams, you can access Teams from anywhere, right? So you have your desktop client over here, you have the mobile app, you have desk phones. So we still run into cases where we have to deploy desk phones. There is plenty of desk phone models available to use. Situations where maybe it's a law firm, maybe it's an executive, maybe it's a receptionist, or maybe it's like a retail type situation where they need the physical desk phone. Soft phone is just not a option for them. There's plenty of device available that we can use to support the Teams phone migration. And there are also like personal devices, right? So you have the conference rooms you have this pad you can use, and then this little screenshot here is showing like all the transcription and Copilot intelligence to recap and summarize the conversation, so you have that intelligence behind every call, augmented by Copilot on Teams phone. So to kind of show you some of the key features that comes with Teams as a phone, and this is again not the full list, right? So by any means, I don't want you to think this is it, which is a lot. So when it comes to telephony, right? Like you have your PSTN inbound, outbound. I'm not gonna go through all of them. I'll just call out a few. We have the call transfer, blind and consult. So this is where one of the innovation is with Copilot. When you do that consult transfer, now you have an option to summarize that call that gets sent to the recipient that you're about to transfer the call to, right? So not only you can talk to them, hey, the call is about XYZ, but they also get like a written text with more context, so that you don't miss anything, any critical information that needs to be relayed before the call gets connected. Call escalation is, two-party call. You can add more people into it very, very easily by phone number or by name if you want to add an internal person or an external person. Call forward, simultaneous ring, call groups, just standard features. Voicemail in Outlook and Teams you can access. Within the same call tab on the Teams client, you can access your voicemail. Voicemails are transcribed. I personally just read the voicemail. I never play it, but you have both options. And then when you do the playback, there is options. You can play it at like a higher speed, like 1.5, 2x, just to kind of go through it quickly. The device switching is actually pretty neat. So I can take this active call right now, or any active call or meeting from Teams, and I can switch to my mobile app. So if you open the Teams mobile app on your phone, it will show a banner on the top that you are in an active call, and then with the join button. So you can click on the join, and then it'll give an option. Do you want to add this device to that meeting, or do you just want to transfer it to it, right? I use it a lot. If I have a meeting that's running over, I have to leave my house to go pick up the kids or whatnot. Like I can simply just do a transfer, and nobody on the call knows that I transferred it. It's very, very seamless, really, really helpful. So you're not stuck, on a call and not take care of something else that you need to take care in a timely manner. Call delegation is also a big one. So you can do, boss admin type situation. The admin can make and receive calls on your behalf. There is also some modification permissions where they can add a different delegate. Should they go on a vacation or whatnot, they can also manipulate some of the delegation configuration. And anytime you add a delegation, that person gets a Teams chat message that you are added as a delegate for XYZ person, and here is your permissions that you can do. And then once you're set as delegate, once you go into that call pad, once you start typing the number, there is a drop down which allows you to either call as yourself or call as your the person you're managing the line for. We have auto attendance, call queues. These have improved a ton. So, a few years ago, there was a lot of feature that was not available that should be there. But now we've got auto attendance, which is kind of where your main phone number lives. So you can define business hours, after business hours. You can do queue overflow, or on the queue level, we can do a queue overflow, timeout conditions, ring a bunch of people. We can do presence-based routing, so they're only notified for an incoming call when they are available in Teams. And then a new feature that was added a while back in the queues is callback option. So if there is a long wait time, now you can offer your callers a callback, which is really, really cool. There is also Queues app that comes with Teams premium licensing that allows you to have little more visibility, real time in terms of reporting, agents. You can put people in and out of the queue. Uh, in-call co-pilot assistance that I talked about, right? Just summarization of everything you do, really putting a context on a team's phone. So it's no longer just a typical phone system, right? Now it's become a more of an intelligent conversation with a context, summary, and then action items after that. We do have dynamic 911 that I talked about, right? So it needs to follow the user now. And then there is some notification mechanism also available in the tool where anytime a 911 call is made, we can initiate a chat message, an important chat message notifying a bunch of people, or we can escalate that 911 call into a conference call and add people to that same exact call in a muted or unmuted fashion, right? So really, really important for companies to be able to add people so they're aware somebody called 911, you know, uh, notification purposes. And there is also analog and SIP endpoint support now with Teams. So if you have devices that may not be native to Microsoft Teams, we can leverage a SIP gateway service inside of the Microsoft Teams cloud and provide connectivity for some of these non-native devices. So again, tons of capabilities. This list is not complete, so there's a lot more. Call analytics we added over here because this is an add-on tool that we are providing to our client to have a longer term retention for call analytics. So especially, we have clients who move from Cisco's, Avaya's, things like that, where they may have a pretty robust reporting for their calling. So you want to see the volume, they want to see the pattern, trending, abandoned calls, things like that. We have the tool just for that, right? So we are able to keep the call retention for a lot longer than the default Microsoft window, and then we can create custom dashboards, reporting, real-time visibility into queues. We can create SLAs on queues, and then it will just measure your queue performance against SLAs. And this can be embedded into the Microsoft Teams client as well, right? So we've got statistics-based monitoring, alerting, queue graph flow. It will give you a visual of how the queues are working in the queue in your Teams environment. And then really SLA reporting, right? So one example that I talk about is, let's say I have 20 different queues for 20 different locations, and those queues happen to be sales queues, right? Each queue has 5 members in it to respond to calls. How do I know from a single pane of glass how many people are logged into that queue? There is one of many dashboards here. So one dashboard focuses on the real-time queue visibility. It'll list all your queue. It'll list all the agents that are logged in, how many are in the queue, and how many are not in the queue. And you have an option to go and put them in the queue. And the nice thing is it color codes the queue, right? So if you have a decent number of users available, ready to take call, those queues will appear green. If you have, you know, 0 users or maybe 1 user available, that's a red flag. So the queues turn red. It like gives that visual indication, and we can really create a dashboard for executives or queue managers. They can just throw it on their screen. They just watch it, and then we can cycle through it through different data points. So really, really powerful tool and in a lot of demand. So with that, we talked about native capability. We talked about call analytics. What are the typical add-on things that we see clients do, right? So these are some of the things that most people may need some or all of them. So cloud compliance recording. We have, depending upon your business, if you have a regulated users, which all their calls needs to be recorded, there is a solution for that, right? And this is, again, something outside of the Microsoft native toolings that we can provide that can record those targeted users, all their calls, inbound calls only, outbound calls only, or calls with like a specific subject in it, things like that. And then we can transcribe the recording, do sentiment analysis on it, score the call or flag it for supervisors review. Right. So this is something that's available outside of it. Inside of Teams, I mean, you can still go and record the call, but it's user subjective, right? And then all those recordings are typically stored on that user's OneDrive. So it's not a compliance corporate solution. So if you're truly in that regulated area where you need that centralized recording, where you have a separate UI to access all the recording, you can transcribe it, you can flag it, things like that, we have a solution for it. SMS options. So a lot of the organizations are moving into this space now, where you use your business number to do SMS, which is really nice because then you don't have to mix your personal number into work SMS. Different kinds of SMS we can do: direct, group texting, there is shared messaging, and then there is a broadcast messaging. So broadcast is one-to-many communication. If it is an inclement weather situation or some sort of mass communications we have to do, these types of options are available that we are offering to our client. The DR, business continuity, is another one, right? So there is many organizations, they want that backup plan. They want that insurance plan. If they cannot log into Teams, what happens to their main number? So we have a solution where we can do a disaster recovery for the critical lines that is routed to a completely different platform outside of Microsoft. So in that event, we can log into a dedicated interface to continue serving those calls, making or receiving those calls. SIP integrations, analytics, which is talked about, integrated contact center, and integrated non-team systems. So there are cases where you would have a company that has contact center or customer service department, right? They need something to meet their requirement. And then the rest of the users go on Teams for a regular unified communications users. So we have platform available that provides contact center, omni-channel contact center capability that is tied with Microsoft Teams. What's nice about it is you put the customer service people on this contact center platform. We put the rest of the people on Microsoft Teams, and we can do call routing between those two platforms. So all the calling between the two is internal. The contact center users can see presence of Microsoft Teams users, so they can make those educated decisions in cases where they have to transfer calls, things like that. The non-Teams system integration is going to be something again, ties back into the direct routing to tie into a third-party solution that you may have. So let's say we do direct routing for you, provide Teams service for Teams users. At the same time, you want to integrate with this third-party voice systems or after-hour systems or whatever it may be. So on one end, we can do direct routing into Microsoft Teams. On the other end, we can do SIP trunking with a third party, and we can do voice routing configuration to provide that interoperability, right? So again, going back into the flexibility of direct routing on how it is solving a lot of those unique cases for client. So let's talk about some of the hidden complexity when we start talking about there is only 2 slides on here, but these are important things for you to consider. So plan your network, right? There is a big shift. If you are one of those companies who is using Cisco or Avaya and whatnot, dedicated, they all run typically on their dedicated network. But now with the shift to Microsoft Teams, SaaS-based solution, now we are moving those traffic onto your data network, which is used already for other things, right? So do a little bit of planning onto it. Check the connectivity, make sure we have least hop, we have optimized connectivity, we have local internet egress. If you have branch offices, don't backhaul into your main office. We need to have the segmentation. The key here is the quickest the endpoint is going to connect to Microsoft front door service, the best result they're going to have. The more hops we add, the more backhauling we do, it's only going to degrade the overall quality of the connectivity and user experience. If you have any kind of security scanning tools, things like that, there is a well documented article out there to whitelist the M365 traffic so we don't accidentally scan it, which is going to again affect the call quality. VPN, if you have remote users working, consider doing split VPN. We have done this for many, many clients. It works, it's secure, it's safe. Most of the media traffic on Teams is going to be UDP, and typically those are already encrypted using SRTP. And if you shove those traffic back into a VPN type tunnel, then you are encapsulating UDP over TCP, and your tunnel has limited bandwidth on it. It's going to cause all kinds of issues, right? So just kind of like focus on, and we can test those. We can configure it. You can test it. Most of the VPN providers do have a solution guidance on doing split VPN and optimizing traffic for media connectivity with Microsoft Cloud. If you are a Wi-Fi, everybody uses Wi-Fi. There is some things to consider on Wi-Fi, right? Like we have a bunch of clients. They are moving more onto Wi-Fi for their corporate locations because they want to promote, the mobility, the collaborative experience in their buildings and whatnot. So spend some time, check the coverage, check the interference, band steering, subnetting. Like those things are going to matter when it comes to a Microsoft Teams phone system. The subnetting actually applies for both your LAN, your Wi-Fi, because that's typically how the location detection happens for your corporate locations for 911 purposes. So make sure your subnets are defined properly. We don't have a blanket subnet that covers 5 floors of the building. That's not going to be optimal. So just kind of break it down to what makes the most sense. And then the next stuff is discovery and dependency, right? So when we do embark on this Teams voice journey, do some discovery, right? Especially if you have a complex environment with a lot of moving pieces, inventory everything, how many users you have, how many phone numbers you have, how many devices you have, faxes, paging, intercom. The list goes on. So you'll have to kind of do some due diligence and inventory everything. Then understand user personas, right? Like how is their call flow working today? If it is executives, assistants, receptionists, remote workers, if you have a call center agent, do they need to be call center agent in Teams, right? Because we can use the built-in voice applications to replicate a lot of the capability. And we have gone into cases where we show the data and augment that with the call analytics for long-term visibility. And that's sufficient in most cases, right? Look at what integrations you have. If you have SIP trunking going somewhere else, you have third-party systems, you have trading systems, all those things are going to be exposed and accounted for because those things may not directly fit in the Microsoft Teams, but there is solutions options to plan for it. Business continuity, like I just talked about, right? Like what is your DRBC plan for critical lines? Leadership wants to know that, oftentimes what is that for their, maybe the critical lines are their sales lines that they want to be open all the time, right? So it is one of those items that we need to investigate. And then call flows, document everything, right? As you are learning the user personas call flow, document everything so we can do envisioning into Teams on how it would work. Chances are some of the call flows you have is going to work slightly different, right? So this is where it's going to help us go into user communication. So if we need to communicate back to the clients like, hey, you'll press this button today, tomorrow is going to be that button. That's going to be critical in adapting Teams phone solution. So now we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of real world scenario. These are the real deployments that we were part of, and how we solved their migration project. So the first example here is for a company that was roughly 2,500 users. They were on 15-year-old legacy phone system, hardware going end of life. Vendor was not supporting that hardware anymore. They had to, one option was to plan to upgrade everything with new support contracts, and the minimum contracts were 3 years, this whole long endeavor, right? And they had a separate on-premises system, which was their call center, which was tightly integrated with their PBX, because that's where they were getting their dial tone service from. They have dozens of fax line, analog lines, whether it's an elevator phone, whether it's a common area phone in the warehouse, things like that. They had a paging system for warehouse, which was overhead speakers, as well as visual alerters, so like strobe lights, things like that. And then there were, PRI, SIP trunking. They had all kinds of connectivity fueling into their PBX environment. Everything was very expensive to operate. They had dedicated resources to just keep the systems up and running, do the patching, maintenance, MACD, all kinds of stuff. And then there was a lack of capabilities. There was a lack of soft phone, mobile phone type feature. People were mixing their own personal phone service to do business calls, which leadership wasn't happy about. And there was a big issue of emergency calling. There were some emergency calling in place, but it wasn't to the standards that has to be by today's guidance and FCC regulations and things like that. So what did we do for them? Here is the after situation. So we unified everything, right? They wanted to get out of the data center space. They wanted to get rid of this equipment while maintaining all their critical flows and giving users more. So the future state was we migrated the company to a Microsoft Teams phone system because they were already a Microsoft shop, right? They were using Microsoft licensing for email, for OneDrive, for SharePoint. Teams was already in use for internal chat communication, meetings, and then it was in natural progression. We did, the design, we did pilot, we did POCs, everything worked perfectly. And then for the omni-channel contact center, we moved them to NVX, which is Netrix's contact center platform that directly integrates into Microsoft Teams. So like I said earlier, the agents were able to see the presence of the Teams users, make these educated transfers. They had web chat, SMS, omni-channel handles available now, which they did not before, even from a customer service perspective, and the whole quality management. So quality management in the contact center, we can do a whole different webinar on the contact center, but it gave them the visibility, sentiment analysis that they did not have before on their contact center. The fax lines were transitioned to eFax. So we went through a interview process with those business owners. For the most part, they were okay to either let go of their fax lines or move it to eFax solutions where they would just access the faxing through their native email platform. We did account for paging systems, which was registered through the SIP gateway. There were some, algo devices in the place, so we were able to use them. And then some of the desk phones they had, like common area phones, lobby phones, we swapped all those out with Teams native phone, right? So it's got the native capability into it. The phones were all PoE, so no need to have like power adapters, things like that. And it gave them like a full experience with presence and everything. And lastly, they wanted to shift focus of their staff who were previously 100% dedicated, a bunch of them, to keep the phone system up and running. They wanted them to do work on other projects, other initiatives. So we were able to replace the management layer of it with our 24/7 managed services, and which gave them SLA-based support. So overall, it was roughly 40% cost savings and happy users. Now people are able to keep their phone lines, use it for business communication, do not mix their personal lines. Everything was working as expected, which was great. So really good case study here that I always like to share. And this one other one real quick is for another client that also had an on-premises legacy phone system. These guys were roughly 3,500 users. Same things. They had faxing, paging, PRI. Oh yeah, in this case, the PRI circuit they have was scheduled to be terminated. So these guys were not ready to move their phone system completely. But their PRI, they had a notice from the provider that they had a couple of months to move. Or they were actually sending them a new contract for a 3-year for SIP services, which was very expensive. So what we did in this case to take care of that immediate PRI need, we ported all the numbers over to Netrix, and we did a SIP trunking into their existing legacy system, right? So we kept the legacy system, take care of the PRI situation, so they are not in that crunch to move their numbers or sign up for a new contract. And then that also allowed us to do a controlled pilot side by side because the numbers are already routing through Netrix. We created a direct routing trunk in parallel and did some trunk to trunk number migration to enable pilot users to evaluate Teams phone. They also had a custom reporting tool that they were using internally for call accounting purposes. They had a call recording requirement. They wanted SMS, and they needed a disaster recovery solution as a backup for their phone system. So what we did for them was to do the bring your own carrier approach, which is essentially we took care of the PRI right away, and then we did SIP trunking into the legacy system, and simultaneously we did direct routing with bring your own carrier, right? The faxes got moved to analog or eFax. Overhead paging was we had to replace a bunch of their equipment to a SIP compliant paging system, and that worked just fine. We did the call recording, the compliance call recording that I talked about earlier. So that gave them a visibility into all the recording through a separate UI. It's not dependent on users. The compliance recording policy would just kick in and record the calls for all the users needed. So another easy example, got rid of all their on-premises stuff, freed up their users, the support staff to go do other things that was more important than running a phone system. And then we backed all of this by our 24/7 support. So they had that continuous ongoing support from us. So to close this webinar, I think we're nearing time. What we can help with is a lot of things, right? So if you are somebody who is looking to get started, or you have a timer that your end of life, end of support is coming up, we can get involved. We can do discovery assessment, really see how things are working today, and then what it would look like from a design plan, even pilot, right? Purposes we can do a isolated pilot. We can move some of your current numbers and do pilot. We can do bring your own carrier. We can do direct routing. There's all kinds of options. And we can really talk about doing deployment and migrations. When the time is right, we can help you get there with number porting, bring your own care, all of the options, calling plan, operator connect, what have you. We can help you identify what is the best option for you based on your usage, based on your requirement, so you don't end up overpaying for a subscription that you may not even use most of it, right? User adoption training is also a big one, so how do the users get trained to actually use Teams as their phone system? If they don't know Teams is their new phone system, they don't know how to use it properly, then they're not going to use it. So we have a whole user adoption and training framework to give them a focused training, provide materials, provide guidance, one-pagers, things like that. And then the add-on capabilities, right? So maybe you are a customer who is already using Teams Phone, but you don't have a DR option. we can help. Maybe you are on Teams phone, but you don't have a 911 in compliance. We can review and we can help. Similarly, contact center platform, right? If you are currently using Teams as your voice system, but your customer service and requirements are changing, now they want something robust, now they truly want an omnichannel contact center, we can provide it and then integrate with your team solution, right? SMS service, same thing. We can do all that. The call analytics component for that long-term retention and visibility, we can provide that as a standalone solution to you. And if you are somebody who is looking to really get a experienced partner to be alongside, provide that ongoing support, that's where we have our managed services. And then, if you just want a consulting advisory type engagement, we are also there for you. So we got plenty of options to help you be successful in the Teams phone journey, or at least, do the guidance or migration, what have you, or any kind of capacity. So please reach out. Hopefully this webinar was helpful, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you for the time.